All right, it is my absolute privilege to bring the stage to this time. We have Jen and Sylvia, the Soska twins! Hello.
Oh wow, I'm loud. Yes. There might be cussing. Fuck, shit, cunt. We got it out of the way. Got it out of the way, guys.
That was her first and only question before this.
I was once on radio and you couldn't say those words and nobody told me.
No, she said them.
That was their problem, but a lot of people listened. A lot of people did listen.
Did you get people in trouble?
It was a college and I'm like, you don't say fuck at college? Like, I'm weird. You're all adults.
Here we encourage it. So, fuck, shit, cunt. Oh my god, that felt really good.
Doesn't it feel free?
It feels so good. I like this.
I'm among family. I'm in a good place.
Yeah. Fuck, shit, cunt. Oh my god.
Oh my god. Should we all say it together?
Do you guys want to say it together? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Fuck, shit, cunt.
Wow.
You guys have practice. You're naturals.
That's usually the time I look at the audience and there's like a 5-year-old and I'm like, oh no, man.
There's a baby way back there and he went, fuck, shit, cunt.
Then he was cool. Yeah, we're learning things here today, you know? Teach them young, teach them young. Have you guys been to a spooky before?
Yes, yes, we love spooky. I believe it was 2018, our last spooky. Yeah, we were here with Elvira, and they had a special pop figure that was released, and there was like a pop figure riot freakout.
Oh my god, I remember.
And then Cassandra walks by and no one pays attention. I'm like, she's the pop figure, guys! She's the pop figure!
She's the queen of the pop figures.
She is.
I remember that, because it was like a special orange dress with like the... Yes, but we survived, guys. We did it.
We did.
Yeah, that was a wild weekend. Well, welcome back, guys.
Thank you for having us. And thank you for everybody who was from 2018 who's here now. I loved it. Yes! Woo! And then we had a really good time at the VIP party with y'all. We'll do it again tomorrow night. We're ready to go.
You guys are ready to party?
Yeah!
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we're already partying. You guys, like, your energy is, like, amazing. This is so great. So I want to know, out of curiosity, obviously, like, you guys travel around. You get to go to a lot of these conventions. What's your favorite thing about coming to conventions? But how about your favorite thing about Spooky Empire?
The people. I know it's dorky, but like we started in theater, and when you did something, the audience was right there. But when you work in film, you're like, you kind of have to seek your audience out, and you see people, and you're like, what did you watch? American Mary? Oh, sick. Elevator? Ah, that's so neat. You know, like see no evil 2. I'll tell you a King story. You know.
At the end of the day, we work for you guys, and the people we usually like work for, they're the fuck shit cunt motherfuckers. I
like some of my bosses. I do.
I like my current boss, but before that, they can all, you know, go to hell.
I don't agree.
But I will say that there's a lot of criticism when you're doing that. So, but when you come out with the fans who actually like what you've done, you're like, oh, this is very refreshing to hear. And it feels like being popular in high school this time around. So it's very, very nice to come to these horror cons. Especially this one. I got hugs from everyone. Sometimes people were like, give me the Wakanda symbol, or like, no hug, no hug. And like, you came too close, you're getting a hug.
But if you guys have been to our table, you know we never stop hugging you. We kind of just like rotate, and we're like, that's enough time for another hug.
And Doug Jones is here too. Has anyone been hugged by Doug yet?
That's on my list.
Yeah.
Doug hug?
Doug hug. He's a good hugger. Once we were at a con, he was in front of this table, and we were in front of our table, and we were just hugging everybody. It was like Hug-a-palooza, and they were like, please go behind your table so people can walk by.
He's the sweetest guy in horror. Next to him, we're a couple of bitches, honest.
I haven't met him yet. I hope to get a Doug hug. Okay, so as an only child, not knowing what oh, it's okay.
Aww.
No, it's fine.
Sorry, oh my god. You saw the pity right away. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay, but it's probably why I have a therapist. But out of curiosity, like, what is it like for the two of y'all, like, working together, obviously being sisters and twins? What is that process like?
Well, it's like having a best friend who's also 100% honest with you. She definitely pushes me to be my best artist or my best self, but it's a lot of the time it's two against the world, because when you're making a film, there's a lot of people that are like, I just want to quit on this. Like, it's tough, it's long, sometimes you're covered in blood, sometimes it's overnights. But I know that there's always one person who wants to see it through to the end, as much as me, the entire time. Because we stay longer with the project. I mean, we're there in pre-production, we're there in production, and then we're in post-production. And then after that, whatever we've made, we talk about for eternity. So it's really nice to have like my partner in crime. It's, we call you people singles.
Singular people. Like when people say, what's it like being a twin? I was like, I don't know. It's way better than waking up and being born and that's it. There's no identical copy of you. I mean, it sounds so depressing.
Yeah, who do you describe your dreams to in the morning? Nobody? That's weird.
Like literally anything can happen. I'll be like, Jen, does this look normal on my elbow? And then we're like Googling it and we're like, okay.
But it's awesome. It's so great. At school, in school, they told us that we'd never be able to work together, and we showed them.
No, it's the coolest experience, and we can divide and conquer, and then we can like have full conversations just by like looking at each other. And people are like, did you talk about me? I'm like, no.
No, I looked at her about you though.
I mean, she knows.
So did your love for horror also like develop together, or did like one of you introduce it to the other, or how did that happen?
I blame my mom. My mom is a huge horror fan, and she had every Stephen King and Anne Rice novel. Those vampire books, those were my twilight. Naughty, naughty books for children to be reading in hindsight. But it all worked out. I didn't know until we went out into the real world that you didn't just watch Hellraiser with your mom. My mom's cool.
Yeah, because mom would always watch horror movies, but we weren't allowed, and we wanted to hang out with her mom, and I remember she'd close the door, but she'd leave it open a crack. And then we'd go to the crack as quiet as we could be, and we'd watch it, and then if she got up for a snack, she'd see us, and we'd be like, oh! And she'd be like, how much did you see? We're like, nothing.
I used to think that Poltergeist was my first horror movie, but it was Altered States. And I didn't realize Altered States was a movie and not a nightmare that I was having as a child until our dear friend Dick Smith, who was the prosthetic artist, passed away, and it was at his memorial service, and my nightmare started playing, and I was like, holy crap, it's real. But yeah, repressed memories are real. I repressed a lot of that movie.
And I remember asking mom and dad about it, and they're like, oh, we did have it on the background, but we didn't think you were watching. Like,
if you haven't seen Altered States, it's an anti-drug film, let's just say.
All right, so you did mention that you had some Kane stories. Is there any Kane stories you could share with us?
oh my gosh. Okay, so Jen and I are the biggest wrestling nerds ever.
Me too.
Oh, yeah! Yes!
Oh, dear.
Yes! That's so okay. So we started watching wrestling during the Kane introduction of Storyline, which was one of the best storylines ever. And then after we made American Mary, we were like super popular in Hollywood for half a second, and they're like, oh, let's get them to do a movie for the WWE here. And then my agents were like, girls, please keep an open mind. It's Kane, and in the original script it was The Undertaker. And we're like,
Ended with The Undertaker. All I could think is, I'm gonna meet the fucking Undertaker.
we were so excited, and they're like, Undertaker can't make it. We're like, fuck! How can he not make it? He works for you.
That's, whatever. It's okay. I'm not bitter about it at all.
So, Glenn, Kane, Jacobs, they're two different guys. I didn't know they would be two different guys at all. I totally, what is it when you are too nerdy about wrestling, you mark out? That was me!
Yep. I wouldn't know because I've never been too nerdy about wrestling.
And you can see, the only time you can get time off when you worked for the WWE back then was if you were doing a movie. So Glenn was like, I need time off. They're like, guess what? You're going to Vancouver for See No Evil 2. And he's like, fuck. But he doesn't swear. So they send it up there, and he'd grown his hair, and everybody's like, it would be easier for our days if his head was shaved. And I was like, oh, that's fine. And I didn't know he didn't want to cut all of his hair off for the movie.
We did make him shave his eyebrows, though. They asked him to shave his eyebrows. They did it last time, and I've never shaved my eyebrows, but he said it took him like 1.5 years to have eyebrows normal again.
Welcome to being a girl. And I remember he comes into the office and they just shaved his head, and the first thing I say is a stupid joke, and I'm like, oh, great haircut. He's like, And I was like, uh-oh. I didn't do that one right. And then the first week was him all going around and mutilating people. And we had a script that we wrote, but the studio didn't really want it in there because they were like, we don't want too much character stuff for him. At one point, he's like, I don't do anything in this movie but stab people. I wish I talked. And we're like, oh, that's so cool because we wrote all these scenes where you talk. And he's like, you wrote scenes for me to talk? Why aren't we doing them? And we're like, well, the studio doesn't want it. He's like, well, I do. And he went in over to the studio and got them all done. And we're like, oh, this is so cool. And because I hadn't made a great first impression, I was like, you know what, Glenn? We're at a great opportunity right now. And he's like, how so? I was like, well, everybody thinks Jen and I are just like dumb bimbos. And he laughed. He's like, oh, nobody thinks that about you.
Why did you laugh so hard, Glenn?
And everyone thinks you're just some big meathead. And he stopped laughing. And I was like, but nobody expects us to make a killer cool movie. So I gave him American Mary. I was like, just so you know why I got this job. We got this job. And he watched it that weekend. And he got so stoked. He's like, we're going to make a good movie? He was so excited about that. And I remember he went from being like, oh, I need time off, I need to get the hell out of this, to be like, we're using a phantom camera that shoots 300,000 frames a second. This is how we're going to set up the lighting here. Oh, when new guys would come to set, he's like, let me show you what it's like on set.
He was such a gentleman. I'm so glad we worked with him because I don't think socially we would have ever become friends like in natural life. And when we got hired to make that movie, the last time I was really watching WWE was the Attitude Era. And I assume that's why we were hired, because I'm like, oh, blood and tits and violence, yeah. No, at the time we got hired, they're in their soft R stage. You couldn't, if you said fuck, it had to be like, fucking birthday. It couldn't be fuck you, which was
hide your fucks.
Yeah. So we would tell Glenn, you can improvise, and we'd be like, just don't say fuck and don't say cunt. And he said, well, as long as I say, don't say, I'm gonna crush your fucking hand, you cunt. I was like, oh, he'd never said the C word before that.
He was like you got the whole room to say it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. If you guys came in late, you missed some really good swearing, but I think we'll still get to it.
And then after he respected us as filmmakers, I decided to mark out again. I was like, so, can you teach me a wrestling move? And he's like, oh. So he taught me how to lock up. He taught me how to do an arm bar and how to get out of it. And then he passed us on to the Big Show, and then the Big Show was our next wrestler. And when I went on set, I was like, oh my God, Glenn taught me how to wrestle. And he knew me pretty well, Big Show, and he's like, oh, she's not that athletic. He's like, I'll teach you how to do a chop, which basically, you make some air in there, and you go, whoop. And one of the stunt guys actually went over to show, and they're like, hey, can you hit me as hard as you can? Let's just see how it, and he's like, I don't want to do that, bro. And he's like, no, hit me. And then after a 14-hour day, the stunt guy went over to me. He's like, hey, you want to see something? I was like, sure. He opened his shirt. He had a handprint. He had it all week. Big Show handprint on his chest.
Yeah. Okay, so outside of, let's say, Kane, Undertaker, and Big Show, who are your favorite wrestlers?
CM Punk.
CM Punk.
CM Punk, once upon a time, picked up our movie Dead Hooker in a trunk and tweeted about it. And our Twitter started to go insane. I won't call it X. In case Elon's in here, it's still Twitter, because you can't tweet to people. Do you X to people? That's like porn.
I was Xing everybody.
That's a different social thing. But he tweeted about it, and we started getting a whole bunch of followers and retweets, and they didn't know what right away. And it was like, oh no, are we being canceled? Did a booby come out some point?
Could happen.
And he gave actually our movie American Mary to everyone backstage. And when we were making a movie with Glenn, he's like, how the fuck is it not me making a movie with you girls? And Vince McMahon hates happiness. Yeah. And if you haven't seen the documentary yet, spoiler alert, he doesn't like the wrestlers to just go off and, be bigger than the WWE. So we really wanted to work with CM Punk. Natalia's awesome. She's such a legend. Every time I meet her, she reintroduces herself to me, and I'm like, oh, you're Canadian. You're like God up there, basically.
We know who you are.
The late, great Bray Wyatt.
Oh, Bray was one of the best.
He was such a good man, and I'm such a gimmick fan of the gimmick wrestlers. When they seem like athletes, I'm like, nah. But if they're like the Undertaker and they like come from hell, I'm like, yeah, that's my kind.
Goldust is amazing.
Dear friend, he's such
a great guy.
Mark Henry, he's an absolute darling. Mick Foley. Oh, Mick Foley is amazing.
I got married by Mick Foley.
No!
He officiated my wedding. I know. I was sick of hearing that. Yeah.
Oh my God! Isn't he the greatest human being ever?
I remember we were at one of these Make-A-Wish things because the WWE, I think John Cena's made every wish in the universe possible at this point. And he was asking me, Mick, what my favorite match was, and I was like, Hell in a Cell with you and Undertaker. And he's like, you should hire my daughter. She's a great actress. And I was like, she was like the one that was crying like during the thing. He's like, oh, that was acting. She's seen teeth go through daddy's face a lot of times. She don't care.
Wow.
She don't care. And it's like, that scarred me as a child, that your daughter and your family were crying. He's like, no, they don't cry when daddy gets hurt.
Shawn Michaels, The Heartbreak Kid was my first one.
Boo.
Sorry, she picked Undertaker during that, whole thing.
Undertaker chose me.
Yeah, but Shawn did win. He climbed out of the blood and just...
After Kane beat him, okay? You disagree?
It's wrestling, it happens.
One of the only wrestlers I haven't met that's one of my favorites is Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yeah, he seems amazing. Anytime he takes a picture with his kitty, I'm like, oh, love a tough guy who likes kitty. I censor myself, huh?
And that's the word you decide to be like, I'm gonna be a lady now.
No, I would not say pussy.
I love it. So before we get to questions from y'all, I'm just out of curiosity. Obviously, you guys have this really freaking cool signature style. And so, how did you guys develop this style, or is it just something that happened naturally?
I think it's something we can't get rid of because, I remember after we made Dead Hook in a Trunk, Eli Roth was like, just make a straightforward horror movie. And so we made American Mary, and it's like, no, we can't make a straightforward. We're just too weird. I remember when we showed my mom Dead Hooker before we did our world premiere, and she was really quiet and upset after she watched the movie. She's like, please don't show anybody this. And I went, Mom, why? And she's like, your dad and I get you and we love you. Other people are gonna see this, and they're not gonna understand.
We grew up loving Rodriguez and Tarantino, as you do, and way back then, it was a dream to be discovered by the Weinsteins. And I really, really wanted to meet them until someone's like, never, no. They don't find female talent. They do, and but they don't promote them. They don't really make their movie careers, and I think it's because we love comic books and video games. We just kind of put all of that shit into our style.
Yeah, you always see us kind of remixing Silent Hill and Resident Evil.
Yeah, Tarantino hacks international films. We hack comic books and video games.
Sometimes we'll put a whole movie around to kill. I had so many friends that were survivors of sexual assault, and I was like, you know what I would do to them? I was like, I want to hang them with a storage locker and mutilate them until they're a little stub. And that was the start of American Mary. I was like, oh, what a movie.
Very cool. All right, so if it's okay with you guys, let's take some questions from the crowd. I know the microphone's pretty far back there. That's all right. Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry.
Shout out for everyone walking to the mic. Yeah. The real heroes of the con. Yes, red shirt.
Yes, you made it to Mordor.
Oh, yes.
What's your name?
Steven.
Hi, Steven.
We met in 2018. I'll talk to you later. I didn't get to the room yet.
Thank you.
Thank you for returning just for us. I appreciate it.
I very much did, but I saw you guys at 6. I'm like, oh, I gotta get here at 6. Most of your movies you write and direct, but I'm wondering if you had a movie come along like the film festival of Living Dead. How do you approach that, since that wasn't something you wrote, you actually only directed it? So when you get something that's not your script, but just, how do you approach something different than that, and something that's really a baby that you write?
Well, we were very blessed with the writers for Festival of the Living Dead, because a lot of people thought we wrote it. And when I read it, because we get sent a lot of scripts and they're like, oh, it's so a movie for you and Sylv, and then I'll read it and it'll be like, oh, you need a female director because this is offensive, or you don't understand my work at all if you think this is something that I like. But has a show of hands who's seen the Festival of the Living Dead? Sick. Y'all might want to earmuff yourself. You know that? Okay, I will censor the ending. The part at the ending with the character named Blaze, when I read that, it upset me so much that I was like, oh, I have to make this movie. That's like the ending of American Mary. It's one of those feel good until it hurts kind of endings. I thought these girls were very, very talented, and Romero, unfortunately, is not with us to tell us what he wanted and what he didn't want, and they were very true to his work, and it was like a love letter. And we got to do a love letter to David Cronenberg, so to be able to do one for George afterwards, and have the George A. Romero Foundation have support of us too, it was amazing. It was a huge, huge honor.
It was crazy because at the moment we were watching all of the Living Dead movies because we were going to do our own zombie movie, and then someone sent us the script and we're like, you're kidding me, right? And because we had worked making Rabbit with David, we were like, okay, the first thing is to make sure that George and what his work was is properly respected. And there were so many times on set we would be praying to George and be like, please let this work out. And we had so many storms on set, like freak storm after freak storm. And then when we met Suzanne Romero, we were talking about praying to George and the storms, and she started to laugh, and she's like, every time he worked, there'd be a storm. And I was like, oh!
Where did it film?
So he was watching us! Yeah.
Where was it filmed?
It was filmed in BC. It was filmed in a place called Jamestown, which is a farm, and it had enough space that we could erect a 15-foot effigy and set it on fire, which was cool. We needed, and also I wanted to do it practically. We did as much as we could practically, and they fought us tooth and nail, and I was like, George would never have done, and George would never. George would never.
Thanks. And Rabbit is my favorite film of yours.
Oh, thank you!
I can talk about that later, but I gotta go.
Thank you!
You have excellent taste. Next victim, please.
How's it going, ladies?
Very good.
Doing well.
I want to talk comic books for a second, because I'm a big comic book nerd.
Sick!
Could you talk to us about your next book for the Ripverse, Blood Ruth, and how horror is going to be, and how it's going to differ from your first book with him, Yaira?
Thank you so much. Well, for those of you that are unfamiliar with the Ripverse, our boss, Eric July, is a huge comic book fan. He'd always be talking about DC and Marvel, and at one point they're like, you should do your own comic book. And so he did. And he got like a Kickstarter, but it was going through his website. The first book made $3.2 million.
7.
The second one made 2.3. And after that, in the very first comic, he had a character called Yaira. And because he was such a fan of our Black Widow series for Marvel, he was like, oh, I don't know if they'd have time, but maybe they would write it. And Yaira was like an insane success. She's like a pissed off Wonder Woman with like ice powers. And that book made $1 million in one day, and I think it ended at 1.6.
First females to do that.
Anyway, so book 2 had this really cool character called Blood Ruth, who is a blood witch, and she was for kind of the introduction of horror into the Ripverse, and Jen and I were like, oh, I hope we get to write her too. And then all the fans started saying, well, you got the horror directors, and Eric was actually going to write Blood Ruth, and he was like, nah, I gotta give it to them. Of course they get to write it.
I will say that there's a lot of T&A in Yaira's books because she's very confident about her everything, and she's very aware of what she looks like. She likes to be worshipped.
She's a super feminist. She's like, look at my tits.
Yes, she's that kind of feminist, the best kind. And Sydney Bloodruth, we like to joke that she's a rated G character in a rated R world. She's very inspired by Buffy, she's very inspired by Blade, she's very inspired by every horror movie ever, and she also, in her book, there is not only references to horror movies, but references to the Bible and legit demonology and legit magic. It always bugs me. Like The Craft, I love that movie. I mean, who didn't stiff as a board, light as a feather, their buddies during a sleepover? And if you didn't, you're lying, and if you haven't tried it, definitely do.
I swear, like, half the audience must have had to come in high school. Yeah,
I feel
that's what we girls did instead of bands. We're like, do you want to do, like, some witchcraft? Let's get a Ouija board. Let's do this.
Yeah, and Bloodruth, we wanted, as soon as we were going to write it, we knew we wanted to release it for Halloween, and man, it is definitely a book for adults unless you're raising a Soska sister. You just go ahead. They'll be fine. I mean, the kind of shit I turned out normal-ish. Right?
You are normal. And it's a 96-page book. It's available at Ripverse.com right now for as low as $15. And it's going to be shipping it next month. But yeah, it is a really cool book. We are doing live action also with the Ripverse. They're doing an animated series. We actually have Dean Cain voicing one of the characters created by Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett. Chuck famously wrote almost like every Batman story in the 90s. He did Punisher, and then he wanted to do a street level guy. And we worked with Dean Cain on Vendetta with Big Show, and we're like, I love getting to beat the shit out of people. We're like, let's bring him back.
We almost did a book for, is it pronounced Zatanna for DC?
Yeah.
No Zatanna fans in here. Oh, we're all Marvel fans, that's fine. No, we all are Ripverse fans, you're smart. And they ended up very sad, but it happens. They just used our name to advertise DC for a while, which was weird because other writers that worked for them said that book was never going to happen. I'm like, they said this book is going to happen, and then it didn't. But we researched so much real-world magic and occultism, and Bloodruth is really kind of the Doctor Strange of our universe, and it was so nice to give her a book that just kind of sets up who she is, and what she can do. And you've only seen a very small taste of who she is, but she's one of the most important characters in our universe.
Thank you for the question.
It's weird because my version of Open Mic Night is an autopsy. Anyway. So I know there's a lot of horror spin-offs of childhood favorites and teen favorites, like they have the Winnie the Pooh horror spin-off, the Pinocchio one coming out. Now I know that you've worked a number of times with Catherine Isabel, who everybody loves.
Katie's the best.
Yeah, but I was actually wondering, have you ever considered doing like a Josie and the Pussycat horror spin-off with her?
Oh,
So I don't know about we have a sequel. If you don't know, we met Catherine Isabel on Josie and the Pussycats. If you haven't seen that movie, that's one of the fucking greatest movies ever made. We got to see Josie and the Pussycats perform live, and du jour, they sang Backdoor Lovers.
and they paid us. And I remember Katie was there, and we're such big Ginger Snaps fans, and I went over to her, and she was so nice, and I was like, oh, one day I'm gonna write a movie about her. We love Josie and the Pussycats. I think we're part of their lore now because they're like, those directors were extras and they met their actor and then it's turned into a movie and it kind of like occurred like that. But we did write a sequel. We did a sequel to Josie and the Pussycats with the original cast. It's not really our wheelhouse, so every time we try to go out of horror, people are like, which are the American Mary twins? Are you sure? Are you sure?
Who hasn't seen Josie and the Pussycats in here? I'm so happy for you because you get to experience it for the first time. And the funny thing is, it was made like in the 90s. It couldn't be because we're so young. But it's so much more relevant today than even back then about the manipulation of the entertainment industry. Nobody manipulates through the entertainment industry, but it's amazing. And Alan Cumming in that, wonderful.
Great question, Gabe.
And I'd still kill Katie in it, just to make sure it's got a little bit of horror in it. I'm like, bitch, you gotta die now.
Hello.
Hello, ladies. My name is Mark.
Hi, Mark.
My question is for screenwriting. Since everything feels so, played out already in the horror genre, how do you write your pacing for, suspense? How do you keep people on edge? What's that look like when you're sitting in the writing room, or do you go someplace to get that inspiration to make it make sense when you screen, when you're writing, then you direct, and then in post, bring it all together?
That's an excellent question.
I am very lucky that I have a partner that I always work with.
Who?
You should meet her.
Fucking kill him.
It's you. It's you, babe. It's you. So the first thing we do is we write, put a line on a piece of paper, break it into a 3-act structure, and we do it from the basic mathematically. So the middle of Act 2 is the most depressing, horrible thing that happens that pushes your character to change or whatever action needs to be done that thrusts you into the 3rd act. On page 12 to 15, I'm talking about like a 90-page script. By then, you've introduced your world, your characters, boom, now you introduce your problem. And then I guess 45 would be the midway point, so about 60, 70, you find out whatever catalyst is going to bring you into the epilogue that the thing ends with. It depends on the kind of style of what you're looking for. A lot of the times, I'll just pick specific scenes that I know, and then I kind of like bullshit to get to the point that I need to. I find a lot of the times writers will get stuck because they're like, I don't have a perfect scene after perfect scene after perfect scene. It's like, but I know what like Act 2 onward's gonna be like. And then you're like, well, just write the shitty stuff and get to the good stuff that you understand, and then go back and edit it. Because procrastination keeps us from getting words on the page, and getting words on the page always means you're being productive. Even if you've written crap, you can be like, oh, I know why this is crap now, and you get a good idea.
I'm also Thank you.
You
I'm
are
a firm believer in that you need to take art in to be able to put it out. Sylv and I watch every horror movie, and if there's something we haven't seen, we write it down and we watch it. And sometimes it's something inspirational or something, you'll see something and you'll just be like, I'm a better director than that, and that's good for my confidence. They did not land that. They did not land that. I would say every horror movie is 3 great kills and no shitty ones. And when you are doing this at a professional level, and I wish someone told me this, write a scene that's so over the top that they're going to attack it and take it out. Because there are people that have no talent that somehow end up in the film industry and they feel they have to say something to justify that they have a job there. And what they do is they criticize your work and they try and take it out and change it, and not even to make it better, just because they're like, oh, I would have done this. And I'm like, well, you're not a director, you're just an executive, so I don't know why you have an opinion at all. And I have learned, and we've done it in more recent films, we put in a scene that's so over the top that they're like, we can't do that, and we're like, no, it's the most important scene in the movie. I'll die if it's not in there.
We really want it.
And then I'll try to rewrite it, and it's even worse. And then eventually, they're just focused on that one.
They're not looking at the rest of the movie. It's all mind games.
Also, go with what actually scares you. If there's things that you feel that actually scare you in real life, when it's coming from a natural place, always feels more natural.
And also, if you're writing with the intention of making a movie, Robert Rodriguez it. Look for stuff like, do you have a friend that has a restaurant? Does your friend have a kid or an interesting dog or a car? Put them all on a list of things that look like they're high production value and figure out a way to put them together so it's a movie. And then also, horror cons. Everybody here is pretty nice. Talk to somebody and be like, hey, can you be like a Zoom cameo? And then, whoa, all of a sudden you have a name in your indie movie and people will be excited about it. And horror fans are the coolest, most supportive, wonderful community ever. I mean, there's a lot of other genres, but horror cons, horror people are the way to go.
Woo.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are! Follow your stupid fucking dreams, my friend. That's what I did. If I can do it, fucking anyone can.
Really quick to follow up on their question, where's been like the most like unique or eerie place that y'all have ever like pulled inspiration from?
Physical place. We did shoot 2 movies in a closed down insane mental health hospital. I wasn't treated very nicely. Riverview, and
It was haunted. Like, there's even a moment where the cast went downstairs with Kane because they were looking for ghosts. And meanwhile, we were setting up a set upstairs, and they all came running upstairs, and they're like, "There's ghosts down there."
I really love international films because in Europe and like Asia, you're allowed to do really, really cool shit. Like Takashi Miike, all of his films are fantastic. And there's so many things that North America seems a little afraid to do. So I love to watch those films and try to like drag a little bit of that flair into our work as well.
All right.
I'm back because
Welcome back, Steve. What up?
just let you know I can talk to you girls all night about so many
Oh, I can talk to you all night too, baby.
I like a man with stamina.
Oh, I have times. I mean, when I was a child, my grandfather took me to the very first WrestleMania.
Oh, sick!
So we have up in Madison Square Garden, top level, but it was great.
Was that Hulk Hogan and
Hulk
Mr.
Hogan.
T?
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan, Mr. T one, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. But
I love that you're a wrestling person. If you told me a Mick Foley backstage, we would never made it. We would never made it up here.
Girl, you are the full package.
We'll talk after.
I was wondering if you had any influence from Alfred Hitchcock. He always made cameos in his films. You two even show up pretty much in every your films, even in Living the last of the Living Dead, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you're there like this when Ash is having her first trip. So I was wondering if he was an influence for you to make you go in front of the camera beside in back of it.
Well, I love acting, and that was one of my true loves. And I find now that I'm a director, I act way more because people are like, hey, you want to act? I'm like, fuck yeah, why not? But as an actor, you're always kind of begging for work. And when you're a twin, you kind of get typecast as, there's 2 of you. But when we get to throw ourselves in movies, we always like to be... In that one, we saved her life. Because she started tripping hard and she got out of the crowd. Otherwise, she would have died.
Yep.
In Rabid, we ruined her life. We really, really did. And I guess in Mary, we saved her life. We really helped her out. We got
The
her...
Berlin twins were nice to Mary. Yeah, and in Dead Worker in a Trunk, we didn't have any money, but we knew the 2 leads were going to get beaten the crap out of the whole time, so we're like, we'll just play that.
That's why you find actors who don't complain. You make it yourself.
You tied me to a truck and drove down the street.
I would rather play badass, so that's tough.
Your left arms are both beautiful, by the way.
Oh, thank you. That's my parents' genetics. I'm glad they. I don't know what it is.
The hand gesture was sufficient.
Okay. Love you, Mom and Dad.
Thank you.
Hello. Oh, it's a bit hard.
Hi. Hello.
Hi, I'm Jenna.
Hi,
Jenna.
Thank you.
Steve, that a boy.
I got two questions. One's kind of smaller than the other. The smaller one.
That's what she said. Sorry.
No,
Go
that's
ahead with
okay.
your question.
Is Dr. Alan Grant in American Mary a reference to Dr. Alan Grant from Jurassic Park? Was that an accident?
Yes, absolutely. Sam Neill is one of the greatest scream kings of all time, and I just absolutely love him. Oddly enough, we had an actual doctor named Dr. Grant, not Alan Grant, but we never gave a shit about him, and he thought we hated him because we made the movie, and I was like, hello with your ego.
It was just hard to name characters, but Dr. Alan Grant was another one, and we loved Entourage, and I loved the character Billy Walsh. So one of them is Billy, another guy's Dr. Walsh. Billy's actually part inspired by Clive Barker. I remember before we made the movie, we named a character after you, Billy Barker, and I remember he's like, ooh, is he a bad guy? And I was like, yes, Clive, he is. He's like, oh good, I hope he's a bastard.
That's really lovely. The second question is, I'm sorry I came a little late, so if it's been asked, just skip it. Given that filmmaking is such a collaborative effort, and you guys work so closely together, what's your creative collaboration process? And then if there is creative differences, how do you overcome them?
Good question. Well, when we are working together, the first thing we do, if we're starting something from nothing, we'll throw ideas back and forth until we're both passionate about it. But let's say she doesn't like an idea, it's not going, and if I don't like an idea, it's not going. And we usually fight over what our favorite scenes are, so I'll be like, okay, well we've decided what's gonna happen, but I want the beginning and that kill. And she's like, okay, well I'm gonna take the ending and that kill. And just very carefully, we take each piece. And I bet if you watch our movies, you wouldn't be able to guess who directed what. If something terrible happens, it's usually this guy over here. If something really funny happens after the terrible thing, that's usually me. It's the Joss Whedon inspiration in there.
You're trying to keep him to walk out of the theater. I'm just like, sit there and cry.
We're
Suffer.
comedy are Siamese twins, really connected by an uncomfortable laugh.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that right? I think
that's a Hitchcock quote, actually.
someone Google it. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
Jen's very detailed oriented, so she's completely in charge of the prosthetics, the everything. A lot of the behind the scenes, getting things together, because I will stay on set with the DP and the actors, mostly number 1, 2, and 3 on the call sheet. I do care about all the actors, I really do, but I'm just so tunnel visioned. I don't even think of them as their human names. Like, I remember when I made American Mary, I only called Katie Mary for months, and then after we wrapped, she's like, please call me Katie. I was like, oh, okay.
Also, when you're making an independent film, most of our films were made in only 15 days. No, but there's no stopping. There is just no stopping. And if we don't shoot it, they're always like, oh, we'll do it in reshoots. I'm like, that means it's gone. It's dead. It's dead, so just improvise, just change it around. Syl will never leave set. She works intimately with the DP and the first, that's what she said. Okay. But the number 1, 2, and 3 on the call sheet, if you've watched a lot of our movies, those people suffer the most. They suffer so badly, so sometimes I remember Katie was really disturbed by Dr. Grant hanging in the storage locker, and I just thought it was a good time. I'm like, fuck this guy. And she's like, it looks a lot like David, and I like David. And I was like, oh, it's not David though, it's Dr. Grant, and we hate him, it's okay. But yeah, they go through a lot of emotional stuff. Danielle Harris, who's maybe one of the greatest actresses in the world.
Danny's the best.
She was wanting to have a baby at the time we were working together, and we're like, well, you could have done it now. And she's like, I don't want my baby's first experiences are me fighting for my life. And I'm like, that's why you're ready to be a mom and maybe not yet for me exactly yet. But they, our first number 1, 2, and 3, like you are very, well, you're like dad on set, and I'm like mom.
Jen's mom. Jen's dad. Mom, I'm dad.
Yeah. If you, no matter what, I'm going over there, I'm talking to you, I'm hugging you after every single take. Syl might not even acknowledge you. And I'll just be like, you know, she's very happy. They're like, is Syl happy? She's not smiling. I'm like, she's very happy.
Okay. But you could tell sometimes instead of saying cut, I'll just go, fuck yeah! And they're like, is that a cut?
Yeah, Dean Cain has a story like that because he's like, I didn't know if we ever cut because I just heard, fuck yeah! My favorite thing is, I'm pregnant now. That meant it was, we're start that take, that's the one going in the movie.
Well, Jen and I started as background actors, and if any of you guys have ever been an extra, you know that the crew and the team might not necessarily treat you like you're human. And I remember we had a 16-hour day on Smallville, and all we were doing is a dancing scene over and over again. And towards
The Halloween one with the All-American Rejects.
yeah, we're like two little like slutty Greek girls. Anyways, I remember the Wrangler came over to us, and we're all tired, we're all hungry, and she goes, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up, all of you shut the fuck up and smile. You're on Smallville, the happiest place on earth. And I looked at Jen and I was like, fuck. And I was like, Jen, if we ever get the opportunity to have our own sets, let's make them fun. Let's make them happy. So like, even on our sets, we hug everybody, we remember their things. On Festival of Living Dead, because it was about a birthday, I bought a birthday cake for everybody on my crew, everybody on my cast, anyone who had a birthday. We had like 50 birthdays during the shoot. Everyone was like, oh fuck, we have to stop for another birthday song? Oh my god. But when people feel valued and you don't feel like the people that are like kind of at the top directing you are pieces of shit and assholes, it's a better experience and you work harder. Like, American Mary was shot in 15 days, but on the 16th day, everybody showed up and we shot everything we missed for free. Like, that's indie filmmaking, and that's by earning people's respect. And I respect the fuck out of my crew and the cast. Like, what we put them through is savage. But I think it's because of our attitudes, they continue going. Like, I won't say which movie it was, but we made a movie and it was troubled and it was gonna go down.
Dude, which movie have we made that isn't troubled?
You know which one it was though, right? Don't.
Oh!
Yeah, that one. That was a case of the missing budget.
They were all troubled in different ways, and I'm like, oh, that one was trouble. That one was like stand in front of the firing squad trouble, and I'd be like, no, we're protecting the art.
And our stunt coordinator, Laurel Lash-Chartrand, who actually mentored us and got us into filmmaking, he was our coordinator on the production, and I was like, oh, fuck, everyone's gonna walk off. And he's like, nope, not until you guys do. And I said, what? He's like, everybody here is because of what you guys are doing. All this other stuff is bullshit. You decide when we leave. So are we leaving? Or are we gonna see this through? And I was like, we're gonna see this through.
Thankfully, we never disagree about anything, so it never comes up. I don't know what you're talking about.
Never!
Thank you, Jenna. Those are good questions.
Great question.
All right, so we have 2 minutes left, and I saw someone else had a question. Did you want to ask your question? Or you just, why not? Good.
Welcome, new victim.
Hello.
Hi.
So, I grew up with twins. My brothers are twins.
Ooh.
And
Identical or fraternal?
they are fraternal.
Lucky.
Was the younger one cooler as well?
I can't say.
Oh, good answer. You really do have twins in your life.
Yes, because it goes like this. When they agree, they super agree. But when they find out one thing that they disagree on, that's when you need to bring a third party in to mediate. And I ended up being that mediator. So, do you have a mediator that you both agree on when you fully disagree on something that, okay, we're going to call this one person?
Oh, that's usually the editor. And we choose our editors very, very well. And, you, in production, pre-production, you can do whatever. In shooting, you get what you get. But editing is really where the battles are won, because you can make or break a film there. And sometimes, which is difficult, we're both right all the time, but sometimes we're saying different things, and that's where the conflict often arises. Richard Nord, he was the editor for The Fugitive. He edited Vendetta for us. He was amazing. He was such a good, in-between, and he'd always be like, no, I think that, or no, I think that, or whatever. Also, I do something on set called You Owe Me One, because they'll say she always forgets, because she'll say, I want this, and I don't want anything, and I'm like, you're an artist, you get what you want, but you owe me one.
Yeah, I'll be like, oh, this is so difficult. She'll support me on something. She's like, but you owe me one. I'm like, yeah. And then later I'll be like, okay, we're doing this. She's like, actually.
And in the edit, I'm like, sometimes I view it, I'm like, this is my one. This is the one. I'm gonna die on this hill.
And I'm like, who gave you a one? It was me?
Usually my note is if we can hang on something a little bit longer, because it's really important for me to have audience have a moment to cry.
Yeah.
In American Mary, when she's sewing herself up, I wanted a side angle, and I wanted to hang on her eyes longer, because I was like, when I watched this, I almost cried. But if when we made it a little bit longer, that's what she said. I always cry. I was like, oh, good. That's where the good catharsis comes in.
You were right, Jen.
What? Can you say that louder? Your mic cut out. Thank you.
Well, fuck shit cunt. We're at the end.
Fuck shit cunt! Fuck shit cunt!
We're at the end of the panel. This has been so much fun. Thank you guys so much for being back here at Spooky. Before we, are you guys going back to your table after? Or are you going back tomorrow? What's the
We're
plan?
gonna go back to our table and close this bitch down. But yeah, and tomorrow, guys, we're doing a bloody photo shoot, and I'd love to see all of you. Wear clothes you don't give a fuck about, because I will destroy it, and I also will ask for your consent before I touch you, and yes, there will be touching. It sounds like the lawyer briefed you on that. Okay, Jen, I like these bloody photo shoots. They seem like a lot of fun. Once a normal person actually watched the video we did, it's like you're like grabbing like tits and putting your hand on their dick, and I'm like, these are my fans. These are my friends. I would, you know, when Roberto Benigni, he won for Best Actor, and he said, I wish I could lay down and make love to all of you. That's how I feel about my fans too.
Yes, too.
Italian guy. I love you guys so very much, and I can't wait to molest you with blood tomorrow.
Well, on that note, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Such an honor.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate it. Looks like Mom was wrong. Some other people got it too. She also said they're gonna think we raised you wrong. No, they didn't. They're the coolest. So thank you so much. We'll see you guys at our booth, and then guys, get Red Bulls tomorrow because we're gonna party.